I reached the tall glass building where my wife Claire worked as the CEO. The sun was bright, and the large sign at the entrance was even brighter. It read in bold red letters, "Authorized personnel only." I smiled to myself. I had visited her office only twice in all the years we were married, and both times she welcomed me proudly. Today, I wanted to surprise her. I had even bought her favorite morning drink. But before I could take one step past the gate, a firm hand stretched out in front of me. It was the security guard, Mr. Logan, a tall man with sharp eyes and a voice that sounded like metal scraping against stone. "Sir, you can't go in," he said. "This entrance is for authorized people only." I laughed softly and held up the drink. "It's fine. I'm here to see my wife. She's the CEO. My name is Thomas." Mr. Logan looked at me the way someone looks at a joke they don't find funny. Then he laughed, a loud, roaring laugh that echoed through the open space. "You?" he said, wiping tears from his eyes. "You're the CEO's husband?" "Yes," I answered, trying to stay calm. He shook his head like he was correcting a child. "Sir, please don't waste my time. I see her husband every single day." I froze. "You see who every day?" He pointed toward the building. "Her husband. In fact," he added, leaning forward as if he were about to reveal a secret, "there he is now." I followed his finger, expecting to see some mistake, maybe a man who only resembled me. But the man walking out of the building looked nothing like me. He was older, neat, confident, and walked as if he owned the entire street. His suit looked expensive. His shoes shined like water under sunlight. "This is him?" I asked quietly. "Yes," Mr. Logan replied with full certainty. "That's the man she calls her husband. He comes every morning." My chest tightened, but I kept my face empty. I didn't want to look weak in front of a stranger. I watched the unknown man, Harold, shake hands with two staff members before stepping into a black car waiting at the curb. Something was wrong. Very wrong. But instead of arguing with the guard, I took a long breath and forced myself to smile. "You're right," I said, "and that's him." Mr. Logan frowned. "Wait, you're agreeing?" "Yes," I replied. "I'm only here to drop something off anyway." I stepped back slowly as if I had changed my mind. But in truth, I was only pretending. I was not leaving. I wanted to see more. I wanted to understand why a stranger was walking around my wife's workplace as if he lived there, and why the security guard was so sure he was married to her. I moved away from the gate, pretending to tie my shoe, but my eyes stayed sharp. I wasn't going home, not yet. I needed answers. And I would get them, starting right there at the entrance of the building I thought I understood. Before we continue, please comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more interesting stories. I walked away from the gate, but every step felt heavy. My chest was tight, and my mind was spinning so fast that the world around me seemed blurry. The image of Harold, the man everyone believed was Claire's husband, kept replaying in my head like a broken movie. I found a quiet corner near the parking lot and leaned against a wall. I needed a moment to breathe, but instead of calming down, memories from the past few weeks pushed themselves into my mind, one after another like pieces of a puzzle I never wanted to solve. Everything had started changing slowly. At first, it was just Claire coming home late. She blamed meetings, deadlines, and late reports. Then, she started hiding her phone under pillows or keeping it face down on tables. She used to smile at me every morning, but recently her smile became shorter, thinner, almost forced. I remembered one morning very clearly. She had been dressed in a navy blue suit, rushing out the door. She stopped and whispered, "Thomas, please don't come to the office without telling me first. There are strict rules. You might get embarrassed." At the time, I thought she was protecting me. Now, standing outside her building, everything she said felt different, like a warning she hoped I would never test. The week before the gate incident, things got even stranger. She started carrying 2 access cards instead of 1. When I asked why, she said one was for the inner wing, but she never explained what the inner wing was. She only said, "Some places inside the company are for certain people only." And the way she said certain people, it stayed in my mind. There were nights she wouldn't come home until almost midnight. When I asked what kept her so late, she gave soft answers with hard eyes, answers that avoided the truth instead of explaining it. One night, I found her crying in the bathroom. I asked what was wrong, but she wiped her tears quickly and said it was just stress. But her hands were shaking and she wouldn't look at me. Another day, I picked up her jacket from the sofa and found a card inside. It wasn't a work ID. It was a small handwritten note that said, "Thank you for yesterday. Same time tomorrow?" No name, no signature. When I showed it to her, she laughed nervously. She said it belonged to one of her assistants. I didn't believe her, but I kept quiet. I didn't want to sound jealous or insecure. But all those moments came back now, pressing against my heart like stones. The final push came the morning I decided to visit her office. She left home early and didn't kiss me goodbye, something she never forgot before. She only said, "Today might be busy. Try not to call." Her tone wasn't rude. It was frightened. That fear in her voice stayed with me as I got dressed, drove to her building, and stood in front of the gate hours later. And now, after seeing Harold and hearing the guard's confident words, everything inside my chest felt like it was tearing apart. I knew something was wrong and I could not pretend anymore. Whatever Claire was hiding, whatever she feared, I was going to find out. I waited until Mr. Logan turned his back to speak with another guard. Then I adjusted my jacket, walked toward the side of the building, and slipped in through a delivery entrance that was left half open. I didn't run. I didn't look scared. I moved like someone who belonged there, and no one questioned me. Inside, the air felt cold and sharp. The hallways were painted white, and the floors shone like glass. People walked quickly, carrying files and talking into headsets. But every time someone glanced at me, their eyes widened for a second, as if they recognized me from somewhere, but couldn't understand why I was alone. I kept moving, following the signs that pointed toward the executive floor. As I walked, I noticed something strange. Employees were whispering, not loud, curious whispers. These were quiet, cautious ones. Heads leaned together. Eyes followed me until I turned the corner. It felt like the whole building knew something I didn't. Near the elevators, I found the first person who reacted openly. A young woman pushing a cart of documents stopped suddenly when she saw me. Her hands shook so badly that a stack of papers almost fell. "Sir, are you—" she began. But before she could finish, she hurried away with her cart, almost running. My stomach tightened. I took the elevator to the 12th floor, where Claire's office was. When the doors opened, everything looked neat and controlled, but the silence was louder. The whole floor felt like it was holding its breath. Claire's secretary, Mrs. Dawson, sat behind her desk with her usual neat hair and calm face. But the moment she saw me, her lips parted in shock. "Mr. Thomas, you're here?" she whispered, standing quickly. "Yes," I said softly. "I need to see my wife." She looked around nervously as if afraid someone might hear us. "Did you call her first?" "No." She closed her eyes for a moment like someone preparing to face something difficult. When she opened them again, she tried to smile, but it trembled. "She's in the inner wing. You can't enter without her card." "I've been told that," I said, "but I need to see her anyway." Mrs. Dawson stepped closer and lowered her voice. "You shouldn't be here like this." "What do you mean?" She glanced around again, then leaned closer. "People have been talking. There have been misunderstandings, and many things happening behind closed doors. Things you might not like." Her words hit me harder than I expected. "What things?" I asked. She looked down at her hands. "I can't explain, it's not my place, but please understand. Not everything you see is the truth." I took a deep breath. "Mrs. Dawson, who is Harold?" She froze. Her fingers tightened around a stack of papers. For a moment, she didn't even blink. Then she whispered, "Please be careful. You don't know what's going on." I stepped past her desk slowly, walking toward Claire's office door. It was locked, just as I remembered from the summary of events leading here. A locked door in a place where my wife worked every day. Inside this building that should have felt familiar, I realized I barely knew anything at all. The people, the silence, the whispers, the locked offices, everything felt like another world built around secrets. I had been walking the hallways for nearly 10 minutes, moving cautiously, pretending to check the office directories on the walls. My eyes were fixed on Harold, the man Mr. Logan had called Claire's husband. He walked confidently through the executive wing, nodding to employees, shaking hands, and smiling at people like he belonged there. The tension in my chest grew with every step. Every handshake he gave felt like a small punch to my stomach. How could a stranger act so familiar in my wife's workplace? And why was everyone, my wife included, treating him with such respect? I followed him at a distance, ducking behind tall potted plants and office partitions. I noticed Mrs. Dawson, Claire's secretary, whispering hurriedly to a manager as Harold passed. The manager's face was nervous, almost fearful. The sight made my stomach churn even more. Something was definitely wrong, but what? Harold finally stopped in front of a large glass door. He didn't knock. He simply pushed it open and walked inside. The sign beside the door read, Claire Stanton, CEO, Private Lounge. I froze. My wife's private lounge. He just walked in like he owned it. I stepped closer, careful not to be noticed, and peeked through the small window on the door. Inside, I saw Claire. She was seated at a sleek black table, reviewing papers. Harold walked over to her without hesitation. He handed her a folder and whispered something. She laughed softly, but there was a slight tension in her shoulders, a flicker of worry in her eyes. My mind spun. This wasn't what I expected. I thought Harold would be some casual visitor, maybe a client. But he wasn't. He had access, he had freedom. And Claire? She wasn't warning him off. She was comfortable with him. I stepped back slowly, heart racing, unsure if I should knock or run. That's when Mrs. Dawson appeared behind me, her face pale. She grabbed my arm gently but firmly. Thomas, she whispered, you need to calm down. Don't just barge in there. You don't know what you're walking into. Then tell me, I hissed. Who is he? Why does he act like he's your husband? Her eyes darted toward the lounge door, then back to me. Not everything is what it seems. Please, just watch and wait. Claire will explain. But Harold, he's not your enemy, and she needs you to trust her for a few more minutes. Minutes? My chest tightened. Every second felt like an hour. My hands shook, and I felt sweat trickle down my back. I wanted answers now, but Mrs. Dawson's warning stopped me. Somehow she seemed more afraid than I was, and that made me even more nervous. I took a deep breath and stepped further down the hall, keeping my eyes on the lounge. Claire looked up, as if sensing something, but she didn't call me. Harold spoke again, softly, leaning closer. I couldn't hear the words, but their body language, so relaxed, so natural, made my stomach turn. I realized then that this was bigger than I had imagined. Whatever was happening in that lounge, it wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was something Claire had kept hidden from me for a reason. And now, I was standing on the edge of a truth I wasn't ready for. I stayed in the shadows, preparing myself. I would face this moment. I had no choice. I stood in the shadow near the lounge, my heart hammering so loudly, I was sure Claire could hear it. After all the confusion, all the whispers, and all the tension building up for weeks, it was time to finally know the truth. I stepped forward, straight to the glass door, and knocked softly. Claire looked up, her eyes widening for a fraction of a second. Then she stood and smiled, a small, calm, knowing smile that made my chest tighten even more. Thomas, she said, her voice gentle, you're here. Yes, I said, my voice shaky. I need to understand, who is he? Why is he Harold? Why does everyone act like he belongs here? Claire gestured for me to come inside. Harold stepped back, giving me space. But he didn't look nervous. Instead, he nodded politely, almost like he had been expecting me. Claire motioned to a chair, and I sat. She closed the folder she had been holding and finally spoke. Thomas, I should have told you sooner. I wanted to, but I wasn't sure how. Harold is my brother-in-law. He lost his family a few years ago, and I promised to help him. When the company expanded, I gave him responsibilities that required trust. Everyone here knows him, and that's why he moves around like he belongs. I blinked, my mind racing. Brother-in-law? Claire nodded. Yes. My sister passed away. Harold became family to me after that. He's not my husband, Thomas. Not ever. He's someone I protect, someone I rely on. He helps run parts of this company because I trust him. And he's good at what he does. I stared at Harold. He smiled politely, and for the first time I saw no threat in him, only respect and calm confidence. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, still tense. "I wanted to," Claire said softly. "But every time I tried, something urgent happened. Work, deadlines, meetings, and I didn't want you to worry. I wanted to tell you when you were ready, and I wanted it to be the right moment." I looked around the lounge at the neat papers, the calm employees, and the man I had thought was a rival. Slowly, the anger and confusion started to fade. I realized how wrong I had been to jump to conclusions. Harold stepped forward. "Mr. Thomas, I've heard about you. Claire has told me so much. I hope we can work together and trust each other." I nodded, finally able to breathe. Yes, we can." Claire reached for my hand. "Thomas, everything I've done here, every decision, was always with you in mind. I needed to protect you from unnecessary worry. But I see now, hiding it only made things harder." I smiled weakly, a mix of relief and lingering tension. "I should have trusted you." "No," she said, squeezing my hand. "You had every reason to worry, but now everything is clear. Harold is family. The company is still ours, and you're still my husband. Nothing else matters." For the first time in weeks, I felt calm. The confusion, the fear, and the tension slowly melted away. I realized how much I had misunderstood and how much I had been loved, even when I couldn't see it. I looked at Claire, then at Harold, then back at Claire. The truth was finally in front of me, and it was better than I had imagined. Everything was going to be all right. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more interesting revenge stories.